More than 300 sewage and water board employees were at their posts when Hurricane Katrina hit New Orleans on August 29, 2005. And they stayed through the catastrophic flooding that engulfed 80% of New Orleans after the levees broke. These dedicated and heroic employees were first responders providing critical emergency sewerage and water board system restorations, while in many instances fighting for their own survival and the survival of others. Their valiant efforts must not be forgotten but preserved for austerity as a testament to the courage, tenacity, and dedication of these employees in the face of overwhelming odds. The generator building next to Drainage Pumping Station 19 was home base for Sewerage and Water Board veteran employee Gerald Elwood during Hurricane Katrina. The generator building is next to Drainage Pumping Station 19, located on the Industrial Canal in the Upper Ninth Ward of the city. Can you state your name and where you work?
Gerald Elwood. I'm a power dispatcher too. I work in electrical distribution at the Carrollton Water Plant.
Where were you on August 29th?
I was stationed at Florida Avenue, Station 19. In preparation for the storm, we're there. Once the city executes their mandatory evacuation, we have to be there 24 hours before. So I was there. And we do our normal watch. Everybody have a normal 8-hour watch that they're responsible for. Midway through that day, I had to leave Station 19 and go to the generator building. That's an auxiliary building that we have.
When did things start to get scary?
Whoa, probably, maybe, I left Station 19 maybe about 3 o'clock. I would say maybe about 6 o'clock that evening or so, as it started getting dark. Right before dark, things started getting a little eerie. The skies, it started getting dark. I can hear, over the radio, everybody getting prepared for the incoming storm. Okay, as the nightfall began, and right before nightfall, the water, I could see the water coming from the west side of Station 19's driveway and the east side of Station 19's driveway. Now you got to know that when you're pulling into Station 19, it declines, it goes on a decline. So you had water coming in from both sides of the driveway, which I had never seen before, and I had been there through a few storms. I've always seen it come from the west side, but never the east and the west simultaneously. And when I'm saying I mean, it was almost a waterfall. Okay, and it was coming. Both of them was coming through the driveway and was meeting, and it was going down at I can't imagine what the speed was that this water was coming.
That fast?
Yes.
What was going through your mind at this point?
Well, initially I called the station, and I told the guys, I spoke with Ned Henry, and I told him, I said, "Are you guys okay?" I said, "Because water is coming in the driveway," and he said, "Yeah, they were okay." I was the last time I spoke to them.
That was it?
That was it.
After your communication was cut off, what was going through your mind?
After communication was cut off, my mind was running amiss because I didn't know what was going on. I knew that they were high. I knew the station was 3 stories. I knew we were safe from the flood because of how we were positioned. But as far as their safety, as far as the constant communication that we rely on during these events, we had none. So right away, you know there's something wrong because we got no communication, and that's what we rely on, communication.
What were you most afraid of at that point?
The water, just the water, the flooding, because that was all that I could see. I didn't have no idea about the wind because we were in the building, so I wasn't sure about the wind. Okay, but I knew I saw the water. So I didn't know exactly how much water they were consuming, the building was consuming, but I knew that it was a lot.
What was the atmosphere like inside the generator building where you were working?
Tense. Not as, you got to know that this is what we do. So we're accustomed to being, to work in rain loads, that's what we call them. So we're accustomed to inclement weather. But this time here, and it was me and another guy, Philip Joyce, and it wasn't a lot of conversation going on. Wasn't a whole lot of talking going on. We were just kind of waiting, you know, and wait to see what would be our next move, what would be the next thing that we would have to do. And normally we would get the call from Station 19 to start the generators, but we never got the call.
What did you think when you didn't get a call from Station 19 to turn on the generator?
We didn't get a call. We didn't get a call, so we kind of just waiting it out. We're waiting out. We prep the generators. We go make sure the generators are ready for the call. We're waiting on the call, waiting for the generator to start the generators. No call.
At what point were you beginning to fear for your life?
I tell you, almost probably quite soon, because this was an area that we had never experienced before. We had never gone through that. So naturally, you know, and the knowledge of how big the storm was. The knowledge of how big the storm was, seeing the water going into the station like that, there was some fear. I'm not going to say that I feared for my life, because I wasn't too much concerned about the flooding where we were, because how high we were. And I knew the water would really have to get quite high to get to where we were. All right, but fear for my co-workers and what they were going through, there was a lot of fear. There was some, and it was mounting, because I had no idea what they were going through.
You didn't know what was going on at that point?
Correct. I didn't, because we couldn't see. We couldn't see other than just the water. That's all we could see was the water going into the station.
When did you hear from Station 19?
Whew. Probably the next day, actually.
So you were on pins and needles waiting?
Waiting it out, waiting the storm out, and waiting to hear something from Station 19 so we could get started.
What happened when you finally heard something from Station 19?
Actually, when I heard something from 19, it was two of my co-workers had actually come over there to the generator building. Wasn't no communication via phone or intercom.
Were you surprised to see them?
Quite surprised. Quite surprised. And you know why? Because they had to swim to get there. They had to swim from 19 to get to where we were.
Yeah, that was a lot of swimming.
Yes, yes. Especially for guys that you know don't swim regularly. You know, they weren't regular swimmers, and yeah.
So how did you greet them?
Wow. Our building's so high, so they had to come up the steps. We didn't know they were coming up, and then they knocked on the door, and somebody knocked on the door. We rushed to the door to see who it was, and it was two of our co-workers. And of course, the sun had come out by then. And of course, we were happy to see them. How the rest of the guys, they say everybody was safe, everybody was good. So then we started trying to map out how we gonna get something going, how we're going to get the generators going, how we're going to get the pumps running. And that was their main reason for getting over there, because they couldn't communicate, so let's try to get the generators going to get some 60 cycle power over to where they were, because they were in pitch black. It was pitch dark over there.
At what point did you realize it was up to you to get the city on the road to recovery?
Right away, actually. Once my co-workers come over there and briefed us on what the water situation was like at 19, we knew right away that we had to get the generators up. We had to get the generators running. We had to get a way to get those pumps started over there at Station 19 to get some water out of the station, and try just to get the water moving, get the water out. That's what we do. That's our job, to get the water going. We got to get the water out. And that was our assignment.
What were you thinking in terms of what was going on in the rest of the city?
Well, you know what? I didn't know, because not only was the water and evidence of the water, but you had stuff all strewed all over the place, you know, from the winds from the previous night. So you had stuff that was turned over, you had signs that were down, you had trees that were down in the area, in our immediate area. So of course I knew that in the city they had to have some catastrophe going on.
So were you saying to yourself, this is the big one?
Definitely, I knew it. You could tell it though. When you come out, the stillness of everything, when you come out the door, I mean, there was the only evidence of life was myself and my co-workers. That was it.
Did you ever think that you made the wrong decision to stay?
No.
Why not?
Again, because that's what we do. It's so common. It's commonplace for us to stay. That's what we do. We have to stay. As long as our family's out, and as long as my family was safe, I felt I was fine. So no, as far as regrets or anxieties about staying, no, because that's what we do. We have to get the water out of the city.
Did you witness any heroic acts by any of your coworkers?
Actually, the staying up, all right, because we're running generators, and the generators have to be checked. They have to be monitored. The oil has to be. We couldn't run out of oil. We couldn't let the oil go down. We lose the generator. So we at 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning, we're lifting 55-gallon drums, putting oil into the generators. Wow. To keep the oil pressure up. At 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, we're monitoring the cooling water cycle to make sure that the generator doesn't overheat. And guys are up doing that. Guys are tuffling over the 55-gallon drum, trying to get it up, so they can get the oil in the water, replace the oil pressure.
We're talking serious 24.
Oh yeah, definitely. Look, when those generators are running, you can't sleep. That's too loud. That's too much noise. You're in the office, but you can hear that. That's just too much noise. It was harrowing. It really was. It really was. And the guys, when you're encamped and enclosed in that environment, and you don't know what's going on outside, you don't know how your families are, because some of the cell phones, I think I had the only working cell phone among us, and didn't know where your next meal was going to come from, because you'd bring something, we were urged to bring something to hold us over, but it's mostly non-perishable, kind of little snacks kind of things, so, but there was some camaraderie there, guys knew, and you know what else would help though? You had experienced guys. We had experienced guys there that knew their job, and they were there, and they were ready, and they were, ready to do their work.
At what point did you realize the levees had breached, and what were you thinking?
I wasn't surprised to hear that the levees breached. I'm not quite sure at what time, at what point did I learn that the levees had breached, but I knew the guys across on the other side of the canal were still trapped in their stations. I knew that. And because we knew that before we lost communication. We knew that they were over there, and they were taking water. So again, so your concern go there, and we can, so you can almost kind of see, if you get high enough on a building, you can look over to their side, across the canal to their building, one of their doors. So we constantly visually trying to see if we can see any of those guys over there as the day's going.
How significant would you say the Sewage and Water Board was in the recovery of the city?
I don't know if I could express it really, but I know that the Sewage and Water Board and its people were instrumental in getting the city back, getting the water drained. I know that without the knowledge and experience of the Sewage and Water Board, it would have taken much longer, because there was some projection that it would take 3 months.
How would you describe the progress made to this point in rebuilding the Sewage and Water Board?
It's ongoing. I think that it's been a quantum leap from 2010 to now. You can see the progress that's being made. We hear about some of the plans and some of the continued plans that are in the works to get our buildings up and to get our equipment up to par, and the additions of the 60-cycle pumps and the 60-cycle generators that are being located on different facilities. So I think that we're getting there. We're not there where we want to be yet, but we're getting there.
The general public has no idea what Sewage and Water Board employees did as first responders. What do you want the public to know about the efforts of you and your co-workers?
Well, How would I defend that? Well, first I would say that the Sewage and Water Board, other than the New Orleans Police and the Fire Department, were here. When everybody else was gone, Sewage and Water Board was here. And Sewage and Water Board's primary objective is to pump water out of the city. That's part of our primary reason of being here, is to pump drainage water out of the city. So to say that the city could have drained itself, or it could have had another agency to come in and drain the city without the Sewage and Water Board, I don't think it could have happened. I don't think it could have happened. Next to impossible. Well, you know yourself with the projections that it would take 3 months to get the water out, and I mean that was cut in less than half, to get the city dry. And that was primarily due to the Sewage and Water Board.
The flooding of New Orleans after Hurricane Katrina was the most devastating disaster to hit any U.S. city. When most of the city was evacuating, some 300 Sewage and Water Board employees stayed on the job, facing great personal peril to respond to this devastating crisis. We salute our Katrina heroes who met the greatest challenge of their lives and found a way to rise above the storm and overcome the impact of Hurricane Katrina. The board's forces dewatered the city in 11 days after the breaches were closed and began to restore quality of life, services of water, sewer, and drainage to the city. It was the restoration of these services that made it possible for citizens to return. It was the restoration of these services that made it possible for progress to begin, going from devastation to recovery, restoration, and today, rebuilding of the most complex infrastructure in the country. Today, confidence in the Sewage and Water Board's management and fiscal responsibility has resulted in the first water and sewer rate increases since the 1990s. These increases will be the building blocks for the development and the continuous rebuilding of the board's systems in the future.